Hello, this is John Speelman with the video version of my latest column for Chess Space, now a monthly column, and it's column 215, I believe, and I'm still carrying on with the candidates. Last time I prognosticated and did a little bit after the first three rounds, and I thought I didn't do too badly. I guessed that Nepo and Caruana would be in the mix, which they were, of course, right till the very last round and the end of the last game, and Nakamura, and the only person I overestimated was Alireza Firouzja, who had a terrible tournament. He seemed too easily discombobulated, actually. And then I talked about Gukesh, who of course won, and how incredibly calm he was. I thought a boy of 17 simply couldn't be that calm and collected, but he was. He was fantastic. He only lost the one game to Firouzja, and he recovered immediately afterwards. So I talked a bit about how important it is to remain reasonably calm during tournaments. That I talk about not being surprised by your own mistakes. And then I talked about the opening preparation, which is what this column's really on, and it is called The Search for Less Than Perfection, or When minus 0.07 is greater than 0.11, which it obviously never is, mathematically speaking. So the thing is, as people know, I think, what you try to do is to catch the opponent out with a line that they haven't thought of or analysed before. And this happened to Nepo, particularly in the game with Prague, when Ramesh Babu Pragnananda played a line against Jan Nepomniachtchi which was slightly below the top choices in a position they could both have anticipated might occur. This is the position here on the right. It's a Petrov, or a Russian opening, and black, rather than retreat his queen, which he could have done a couple of moves later from a5 to c7, has captured on c3. So you reach this position, and your absolute first thought, at least my absolute first thought, is can white somehow attack? And make some horror for black. But and the first move that comes to you is rook to b3, because it attacks the queen and gains a tempo. The thing is, though, that if you ask an engine, I've got a reasonably powerful system, I suppose. I don't know if it is really anymore, but it's above average, I would say. I can't remember the spec exactly now at this moment. And you stick on your engine, which tends to be stockfish nowadays, then you just... What I did was I stuck it on for a minute in this position. I first increased the number of variations to 7. Normally I'd have 3. And I sat and waited. And then after a minute I took a screenshot. So I got rook e1, queen e2, rook c1, a4, bishop f5, and 6th, rook b3, and 7th, g3. So rook b3, which is the obvious move to a human being, is only the 6th move when you ask this particular engine in this particular state. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? Engines will be in different states, of course, in different machines, slightly, I assume. Anyway, so he played rook b3 in this position. Nepo played queen a5 after a little thought, and he hit him with d5. And at that moment, Nepo went, as we say, into the tank. And he thought the old Soviet advice was that if you got hit by an opening novelty, you sat there and thunk, or even thought, if we're going to speak English, and you thought until you found what you thought was the right thing to do. Nepo took 40 minutes, and eventually he found a defence. And he defended himself really very well, considering, with the pressure he was under, but did make one mistake. But by that time, Prague was reaching the end of his opening preparation. Remember, there's this immense nest of variations, or tree of variations, whatever, forest. And he couldn't remember it or didn't know precisely what to do. The winning line was very complicated, actually, very difficult to see, and he failed and Nepo drew. So then I've complemented this with a game from 9 years ago, Nakamura against Karyakin, and it's perhaps the most famous or the most impressive piece of centaur, that is man-machine preparation in recent times. And Nakamura played the move e4 in this position. Previously people had played king b3 and made a draw, including Carsten had done that, but Nakamura with his engines, so he knew that although it looked insane, he wasn't really taking a huge risk. And poor guy, his opponent, poor Karyakin, you can say that about the chessboard, had to make a decision, and he got it wrong. Very, very, very easy to do that, and he lost. So he was basically lost after he made his decision. Incredibly hard to do. So that's what occurred, and I've given that with basically the critical position and a few lines ending in glorious perpetual checks, and pointed out that e4 is no problem whatsoever to an engine, because beep beep finds a line that ends in perpetual check and thus is 0.00. But for us poor carbon-based critters, it is not the same. Right, let's go to the games then. And we start with, sorry, I'm going round and round. We start, here is column 215, and we start with Prague against Nepo, and for some reason, again, it has got black that way round. Okay, and I said the notes actually were the ones I used for the English weekly newspaper, The Observer, so they're more descriptive than analytical, a lot of them, but I've added some stuff. And I didn't bother to remove it. Okay, they eventually get to this position. It's a known line, and bishop b3 is less common. Queen d8 has been played. Okay, who is that? I'm just giving random, or not very random games because they're very strong players. This prevents the knight, and apparently my glorious dictation software has lost the K, as it tends to, from developing immediately by the natural square d7, or by the natural square d7. In the 6 games I have, everybody had resisted the temptation to take the c-pawn and play queen c7, including Nepo himself in a game online to the Azeri. He lost online to the Azeri Grandmaster Ralph Mamedov. And I gave the game Mamedov against Nepo, which is here. Where is it? Somewhere down here. Ralph Mamedov against Nepomniachtchi. But what happened was we had queen c3. Of course, Nepo had thought in the interim. Rook b1, b6. Yes, you can play knight a6, but it's rather an ugly move. And now rook b3, the engine's 6th move, and apparently minus 0.007. Oh my god. Queen a5, and then d5, hitting him. And in the notes here, I compared it to a punch in the ribs. Well, I think I did, or punch in the stomach. It's an awful move to have to meet. So you can play queen takes d5. There are lots of very complicated lines. Let's just take one of them. Queen takes, rook to there, bishop takes. Obviously you don't have to go bishop takes. Take everything. And here you get splatted. If you take the bishop, which you don't have to, there is this disgusting line. Okay, obviously this is not. F3 mate is clearly a better mate than rook h4 or queen h4, don't you agree? Much prettier, or faintly prettier, and there are other lines as well. And he thought for 40 minutes and took with the pawn. Knight g5, absolutely obvious he wants to play queen h5 or knight h7 or something. h6, and nobody will have, I wondered about d4 as well, but it's not a great move, I think. And nobody will have imagined for a moment of untime that white wasn't going to play knight takes f7 here. You do not play this variation if you're not going to play knight takes f7. It would be insane. I mean, maybe knight e6 might be a move conceivably, but knight f7 is obvious. And Nepo had by this stage, I know you've seen this game, but there are some moments you may not have done. If you'd done it quickly, you probably would have done. Had realised that rook takes loses, so he took only a couple of minutes. That's the point. Bishop takes d5. Let's give that an exclam, actually. And there are horrid things like here, take, check here, rook c3, queen to there, g3, and you still lose a piece. And you should lose this position, though it would be a fight. No, actually not much of a fight. You don't even have a passed a pawn, do you? So he took with the king. On it continued, rook to there, knight d7, exclam, good move, needs another exclam actually, offering the knight back. You can't run away with the king yet because of bishop to e6 check takes d5, which would win. But if you play knight d7 after takes, if white takes, king g8, check king h8, bishop d5, you can now move your rook out of the corner and it's about equal. So rook takes d5 was played, all preparation, black has to choose. Bishop c5, knight c5, or actually the best move is bishop h2 check. Okay, it's really difficult. Nepo's already expended a lot of energy making sure he had to take with the king, finding knight d7, deciding which way to recapture on d5, and he plays knight c5, question mark. And that needs a question mark. I think it should probably, or a dubious mark anyway. Bishop c5 loses. I was looking at all sorts of things and I didn't realise that there was a nice little staircase, quite a sort of jumping staircase. I couldn't see it. I actually had to ask the engine, how do you win after bishop c5? That's how you win. He played knight c5, should have played bishop h2, rook d6, king g8, queen d5 check obviously, king h8. And this is where he had to decide what to do. I thought about 12 minutes, I think, Prague, and then played didn't play queen e5, played bishop f5. The game, we'll just see the game, after bishop f5, knight b7, clever move, simplifies, queen takes, knight takes. And, okay, white's a bit better, but it's nothing terrifying, and he drew. He should have gone queen e5. But the difficult thing is that after queen a2, defending the diagonal, you don't play rook h6 check, which everybody just plays completely. And then I think he probably saw this variation. Oops, mate in two more moves, and thought, oh dear, that's really upsetting. I'd better do something else. But what he needed to find in this position is an incredible line. Bishop f5, sorry, not rook h6 check, but bishop f5. Threatening rook h6 check, which would now win outright. King g8, bishop b1, queen f7, and now the magnificent move, queen to b2. Really difficult move to find. Have I given, in that position, have I, queen f7, have I considered, I'm just going to ask my engine queen f4, whether there's something better than that. Queen c4 rather, sorry. Queen c4. You can go rook g. Oh, you can go rook g6. 7. Queen a1. Okay. Heavens, I didn't know that line. And now the threat again of bishop a2 is devastating. It's such a foul position for black. Can't you try a5 now? You try a5 now. Bishop a3, knight to here, rook takes b6 exclam, and you win. Because of course if a4 there's a pin. Okay, so this is another line I've seen. Every time you look at this you see something more. So this brilliant move queen a1 though. Queen f7, queen a1, you get on, or b2 rather, you get on the diagonal. Here, check, here, 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 check, here, here. And black is utterly splatted. Completely and utterly splatted because bishop a2 check is happening. Brilliant and very difficult variation, which you can imagine Gukesh absolutely couldn't find at the board. Though I think it's possible he had a feeling that bishop f5 was somewhere there and couldn't remember. Anyway, bishop f5, knight b7 was played, clever move, and now we get to this ending. And it is a bit better for white, but it's nothing very special. Here, I would never in my life allow the bishop to settle, the knight to settle an f3, even if it's the best move. And he didn't, and they played some more moves and reached a rook ending in a minute. Some moves were played, he took it actually. Okay, and they agreed to draw here. Okay, we can well believe that this is a drawn position. We've seen it before. So the thing about this game is that Prague found this brilliant opening idea with what was purportedly the sixth best move. Though of course, since they all lead to equality, they're all equal really in that position. With best play, they all presumably all lead to perpetual check, or most of them. And he hit Nepo. Nepo defended himself the old way that they'd been taught. He's a bit young, isn't he, to have been at all really Soviet, but I mean that's what they were taught in the schools, you know, by the trainers. You must sit and think when you're hit with a novelty. And he defended himself. God, it went a bit wrong, but held. Okay, that's game one. The second game is this game Nakamura against Karyakin, and I'm going to go to the critical position. Knight b5 didn't ever used to be played. They always used to play knight b3, but then they found this line, and it turns out that this is playable g5s. This is all heavy theory. So they got to this position. It had happened, I think, about 5 times before. Previously, maybe 6. One of them White had played e4, actually, but he didn't know what he was doing and he lost. But, of course, Nakamura had analysed this in enormous detail, knew what he was doing, knew what he should do. And now Karyakin had to decide and played knight e3 check, which is a losing move. The main line goes like this. You don't play d5, which had been played in this previous game, because king d3 is good for white. Play bishop g7, and the game continues. Check here, check, forcing the bishop's diagonal to close. Queen to there, bishop a6 exclam. It's all completely bonks, this line. Presumably queen takes, loses to bishop g2. It must be very... Oh, what happens after queen takes? Something clever. What do you do? Queen takes... I'm going to ask again. I assume it is bishop g2, isn't it? Yeah, it must be. Bishop g2, bishop a6. Oh, I can't count, can I? Bishop a6, just rook a1. Rook a1, take, take. And white is winning. Sorry. Okay. I mean, I'm asking the engine because I don't want to take a long time over this. So the main line goes bishop a6, queen takes bishop, f5. And now the most wonderful line, this is the prettiest line, goes like this. With a glorious perpetual check. What a lovely variation, eh? So, brilliant stuff. And that's what he should have done. But he went, we'll just get back to here, knight e3 check, and now it turns out he's lost. a3, queen checks here, take, take here. Okay, he's going to win. He's got the 2 bishops. It looks like he might win some material back. But of course Nakamura knew better. And he rook d8, rook to there, and he resigned, because if rook takes d7, rook c1, rook d6, e5, and there's nothing better. If king b7 or do you do if king b7? You can go knight c5 check, can't you? And rook takes rook, yeah. So, very fine game. Yep, there we go. Okay, well, I hope you've enjoyed these two games. And I'm just going to check, of course, that I am recording, or otherwise start screaming. Though without a recording, nobody will hear me scream, and I am. That's very good. And I will be back in a month. I think it's June the something, the 2nd or something. I did say, didn't it? Sorry, wrong one. June the 2nd. So please tell me anything you'd like. I think there will be probably comments turned on. Please tell me anything you'd like me to look at in a month. I know there are some various attacking players you might like me to look at. Okay, it's been a pleasure, and have fun in the interim, and see you in a month. Bye.